Hello everyone, and just a reminder that this webinar is being recorded and it will be made public. We are very happy to have you here for today's webinar on student loss, and this study is supported by the Ascendium Foundation. This research focuses on a critical issue: why students leave college before the census date, and what institutions can do to better support them. I am Rita Karam. I'm a senior social scientist at the RAND Corporation, and I am co-leading the study with my colleague Charles Goldman, who is a senior economist here at RAND as well. And together, we'll walk you through the study approach, findings and recommendations drawn from our work with 15 community colleges covering 3 different states. Following our presentation, we'll hear from 2 of our collaborators at Dallas College, Dr. David Mahan, Director of the Research Institute, and Dr. Saida Jamila, who is Operations Manager of the Outcomes Lab that is also housed in the Research Institute. They will share the insightful analyses they conducted and innovative strategies they're implementing to help reduce student loss. Dallas College has been an invaluable partner throughout the study. While we present, we encourage you to share your questions or comment in the chat. We've set aside about 10 minutes at the end of the presentation to answer any questions that you have in the chat. And I want to thank you again for joining us. And now I will turn this to Charles Goldman, who will take us through the study design and approach and few findings related to magnitude of student loss.
Thank you, Rita. As Rita said, I will start off the presentation by telling you a bit about our study. Community colleges around the country are facing declining enrollments, especially after the disruption of the COVID pandemic. And what we found is that community college enrollment strategies often overlook early dropouts, particularly before what we call the census date, which is the official date at which students are counted for enrollment. And so we're looking in this study at how many students are lost and how colleges can track, engage, and re-engage these students. We're very grateful to the financial support of the Ascendium Philanthropy for supporting this research. 15 colleges in 3 states participated in the study. The states are California, Texas, and Kentucky. And at each of the 15 colleges, we interviewed college leaders and staff. In total, about 130 participated in our interviews across the 15 colleges. We also partnered directly with Dallas College, whom we're going to hear more from in a few minutes. And at Dallas College, we conducted interviews with individual students who dropped out before the census date. We conducted detailed analytics collaboratively with Dallas College Research Institute. And we conducted a series of workshops, and the Dallas team will have a little bit more to say about that later. In our interviews, we spoke with 32 Dallas College students who registered for classes and then dropped out before the census date. And we asked them what the barriers that they faced were. They told us that typically they face multiple barriers. The barriers that they most commonly cited are financial need, family and work obligations, mental health needs, having transportation to classes, difficulty navigating the college system, and difficulty accessing college staff and resources. Many of the students told us that it wasn't just one barrier that caused them to drop out, but it was actually multiple barriers intersecting at the same time that caused them to decide that staying enrolled in college wasn't right for them. We developed a simple pipeline model to understand the student journey, starting from exploration of colleges through the formal application to college, and then registration and enrollment in classes. And depending upon the college, colleges might require pre-enrollment testing or some vaccinations, other kinds of requirements like high school transcripts or transcripts of other education to get enrolled. Then the students make it toward the first day of classes and eventually to the census date, which is typically a couple of weeks into the term. Students generally need to do a financial aid application because they need resources to study. And while it's not absolutely required to have financial aid, most of the students that we spoke to or were involved in the colleges in this study typically need financial aid. And so although it's not a requirement, it's a very important milestone. They might do their financial aid application before they even register. They might do it around the first day of classes, or they might wait and do it quite late. We tracked students through completing their first term and then further persistence. Now, at all these different stages in the pipeline, students can be lost. We'll look a little bit more at that in a second. What we found is that many students are lost in this process, but only some colleges are tracking these early losses before the census date. We found that all the colleges in the study have data that they can use to track the students through this period, but only some are actually doing that tracking. At Dallas College, we found a little bit more than 60% of the applicants actually make it to the census date. And if we measure from the enrollment point, the loss is about 10 to 15%. I'm sorry, I think I misstated there. About 60%, a little more than 60% are lost between application and census date. About 10 to 15% are lost between enrolling in classes and the census date. We talked to the other colleges in the study, and we found that the colleges that had data had figures that were pretty consistent with this. So we think this is a fair representation of what these losses look like at typical community colleges. Now I'd like to hand back to Rita to talk us through the findings and recommendations of the study.
Thank you, Charles. So for today's presentation, I will share a selection of key findings and recommendations organized under 7 main categories that you see here on the slide, covering data availability to track student loss before the census, college processes and re-engagement to minimize student loss, as well as a capacity building of counselors and advisors. While I will be highlighting overarching themes observed across the institutions, please keep in mind that there is variation among the individual colleges, and in our report, we highlight those variations. In this presentation, we will be highlighting the key opportunity areas across the colleges to eliminate paths towards stronger outcomes and stronger retention of this student population. In the recommendations, we've included promising practices currently being implemented by a few colleges and expanded on these practices. We also have also added additional practices and recommendations as well. Okay. So most colleges do store information on, have student data information, obviously, but they are stored in separate, unconnected systems, making it difficult to track the student population. Colleges often need to combine information from multiple sources, such as application, registration, and course management systems. So we recommend consolidating and synchronizing these systems, or if that's not feasible in the short term, because that does take resources and time, we recommend that colleges could hire staff to manually piece together the data or do it internally. Once integrated, colleges can use tools to monitor student progress, understand enrollment patterns, and identify bottlenecks. To effectively track students from application to census date, colleges also need clear definitions for each stage of the student journey and consistent metrics for different groups, such as first-time applicants, dual credit students, adult learners, and so forth. And this enables early identification of at-risk students, paving the way for targeted interventions to improve retention. In our study, we also found that few of the colleges are implementing intervention to retain the student population and minimize them dropping out. But the colleges are not monitoring their interventions. We recommend for colleges to develop a monitoring system that collects intervention-specific data, both implementation and outcomes, both qualitative and quantitative, to allow the colleges to use the data to inform corrective action and improve their interventions, as well as inform the scale-up of the interventions. Now I would like to turn to some insights on how colleges communicate with student applicants in the early stages up to the census date. Colleges, as you know, send students substantive detailed information in their welcome emails when students apply. But to many students, this can feel overwhelming and confusing. As Charles mentioned, many of the students are facing personal barriers, and many also do not know how to or do not have the expertise or the knowledge to navigate college processes and college systems. So we recommend colleges streamline and personalize their communication by tailoring content to specific student groups or to specific students who have certain interests and intended majors, rather than sending a generic one-size-fits-all messages. Text messaging can be an effective channel for these customized communications. Institutions also could consider breaking up the information into smaller, more digestible pieces delivered throughout the application and enrollment processes, making it easier for students to absorb and act on. Our study also found that as students move from the application to the registration ready to the enrollment, to enrolling in courses and the census date, they are handed off between different staff members, each with different roles. Some students we spoke with were not aware of the staff handoffs, and leading to misdirected questions and unresolved issues. This lack of guidance contributes to students dropping throughout the early process up to the census date. To make things smoother, we recommend that colleges let students know exactly which staff members they'll be working with at each stage of the process. This way, students know who to turn to for help along the way. But one of the leading reasons students drop out before the census date or are dropped by the colleges before the census date is financial uncertainty. Some students don't receive their financial aid decision in time, or they do not know how to access the financial support that they need. College welcome emails often fall short, missing critical information regarding financial aid timelines, eligibility criteria, and step-by-step guidance and regarding also the paperwork that the students need to submit. This leaves students feeling unsure and unprepared for this process. To help fix this, we recommend that colleges take a few proactive steps. Colleges could send timely reminders via email or text or even calling the students that prompt students to complete financial aid forms, choose a program of study, and understand eligibility requirements. We also found that in few colleges, new students can't receive financial aid unless they have declared a major. This creates barriers for this group of students. These colleges could consider training early stage staff like admission counselors to guide students in choosing a major and not only have just the administrative tasks when meeting with the students. Also, colleges could require undecided students to attend early orientation sessions designed to help students explore their major, or the colleges could require the students, undecided students, to meet with advisors earlier to help them make informed choices. Another recommendation is that colleges could redesign application questions. Rather than allowing students to select undecided, they can ask them to choose a broad area of interest. This encourages direction without having students commit to a specific major and still be eligible for financial aid. Colleges could also give students access to financial aid, even if they have not declared a major during the first year, allowing them to explore options during the first year student success courses. And for colleges that have strong partnerships with high schools through different initiatives like dual enrollment programs, they can help students begin career and field of study exploration while they're still in high school. So by the time they apply to college, students have an intended field of study. Another important factor influencing whether students remain enrolled past the census date is whether their basic needs are being met. Colleges do assess student basic needs only after the census date. Usually they give students survey later in the term, which is often too late to provide timely support for those students who are thinking of dropping before the census date. A promising strategy is to incorporate a brief, well-designed survey, consisting maybe between 5 to 10 questions into the application or enrollment process. And by doing so, colleges can identify students' needs early on without causing survey fatigue. And for those students who do have needs, can provide them with relevant links to resources. Advisors also would then have access to this information during the course enrollment meetings, enabling more meaningful conversations with the students about their needs and what will make them successful in college. To ensure high completion rates, colleges could require students to complete the survey before proceeding to the next step in the enrollment process. So building on this idea of identifying early on students at risk of dropping before the census date, we examined in the study the role of early alert systems. Some colleges we spoke with in the study reported having an early alert system, typically initiated by faculty and typically implemented during the 4th or 5th week of the semester. The system tracks mostly student absenteeism or low academic performance. However, the alert systems are applied too late to capture students at risk of dropping out before the census date. We recommend colleges to expand the early alert system to the early weeks of the term. If they implement, for example, the basic needs survey I referred to earlier, or obtained information from the application on whether the students are undeclared and integrate that information in the early alert system, then they can generate alerts for these at-risk students and use them to connect the students with resources as needed, as well as also connect them early on with advisors. Also, colleges could incentivize faculty to identify at-risk students early in the term. And they can also leverage technology. Colleges can restructure online courses and learning management systems to flag disengaged students automatically, such as those who do not log into the system or those who do not complete their assignments during the early weeks of the term. Okay. So having explored key findings and recommendations aimed at reducing students student dropout through improved college processes. I'd like now to shift a bit and focus on another critical area, which is student outreach after enrollment and before the census date. This is the phase we find that many colleges overlook. So we suggest having system in place, and one of the colleges that have participated in the study has the system in place, such as text messaging to send friendly check-ins right before term starts and during the first 2 weeks. Those are not just reminders, but messages that say, "We're here for you. Do you need anything?" And these emails will help students feel connected, and students will more likely reach out for support. Now, what about those students who have already dropped before the census date? A few colleges in our study are making efforts to contact them and re-engage them, either through utilizing their own staff or through partnering with external vendors. And the goal is to connect with them, to understand what are the reasons for why they dropped out, and to find ways to help them re-enroll in subsequent terms. Dallas College will share more on their approach to engagement in their presentation. We've also heard from the students who dropped before the census date that advising to them felt transactional. And this is not a surprise. Many students enroll last minute. Our study shows that about 30% of the students, register 2 weeks before the start of the term. And also, colleges face staffing shortages and overloaded caseloads. Plus, not all advisors have the same skill sets. So we recommend colleges to consider a few things. One is reviewing staffing allocation and matching people to roles based on their strengths. Some, for example, advisors or counselors are great at student interactions, others excel behind the scenes. Allocating staff based on their specialties and developing those specializations might improve student service and efficiency. Second is creating a centralized hub that connects students to the right staff and eliminate the need for students to schedule appointments or contact multiple people. Again, another college in the study has created such a hub. And this hub has staff that has access to the calendars of all counselors, advisors, even faculty, and can make the appointments on behalf of the students on the spot, and make sure that students are connected in a timely manner. We also recommend, for colleges to consider building case management teams with incoming students throughout their application to enrollment journey. And under this model, early on, students are assigned to a team, and this could be determined, for example, by their meta major. It is resource incentive, but in the long term, it might there could be a return on investment for this approach. So, this study really is looking at student loss, not in terms of issues related to retention, but as an enrollment strategy for colleges. Our study shows that while colleges are involved in promising practices, gaps persist in how colleges streamline student support before the census date. We have provided several recommendations, and our report also has additional recommendations and detail how they could be implemented. And the goal here is not for the colleges to adapt all the recommendations, but to assess where their gaps are and identify recommendations that will fill those gaps, as well as recommendations that could be implemented in alignment with the organizational context and the resources available at the colleges. So here's the QR code and the link to our report. It's now on our website. And if you have any feedback or questions regarding the presentation or regarding the study, please email me and Charles. And right now, what I'd like to do is turn this to David and Saida to discuss the approaches used by Dallas College to minimize student loss.
Hello, my name is David Mahan. I'm the Executive Director of the Research Institute at Dallas College, and joining me today is Dr. Saida Jamilai, the research lead on our project Mitigating Early Student Loss, which is again a study of the admission processes at Dallas College. First, I want to thank Rita and Charles for being great partners. We at the Research Institute attempted to match these tremendous efforts from RAN internally from our unit to pull off a mixed design study, which we all know is very difficult. But I think we really got to some important information and we disseminated it well. We've been working on this for about 2.5 years. And again, the population that we're studying are those students that registered with us. So in other words, they went through the long, tough process of doing all the requirements to register during the application process. So they finally register with us, but then they don't matriculate past Census Day. And we want to understand why. And so we have three areas to look at. We call these barriers. Our Chancellor Lunnon says that we're in the barrier busting industry, and that is exactly our focus here. So in these three areas, we attempted to simplify a lot of different research conclusions so that we could create action. First, unresolved financial aid, and this could be a myriad of reasons, but certainly that program of study declaration and that exploration is key to getting this process done, and something that we looked at very carefully. Basic needs and unidentified aspects of those needs, because truly we could address many of the needs if we only knew that this was their barrier. And then thirdly, transactional interactions. So our system is set up, the learner care model, which will show you in just a minute, is set up for a single point of contact. But yet our students were telling us that they were still getting bounced around to multiple contacts. And so it was another area we knew we needed to address. So there's very few studies in our careers where we can say we put as much time into the follow-up, to the actions, to the improvement as we did in the research itself. And this is one of those exceptions. So we're really excited and proud that we got to this point. And the real question is, are we making a difference for our students? The first thing we did as a follow-up is we did a 3-day on-site visit from RAN, and we created these working groups, there you see on the right, that were aligned with not only our structural organization at Dallas College, but also around those three research findings. And so what we learned was very, very important. If you take the research and you unpack it with the personnel that work directly with students, then we have this robust conversation of what we're seeing day in, day out with our students, and really fine tune those messages, those ideas on how we're going to improve this process. To give you a sense of what Rita and Charles were presenting, this is the admission funnel at Dallas College for the fall of 2024. And you can see we have about 50,000 applicants there. About 1/3 of them end up registering, and then 89% of those make it past Census Day. So we get the question often, and you see there on the left, we have 1,835 students that we're focusing on this. And we say, well, you started with 50,000. Why aren't you focusing on them? Well, let me just say, we are all hands on deck with our leadership in strategic enrollment management on that top side of the funnel. But the bottom side of the funnel, these students have been through all of the processes. And they can tell us what went right, what went wrong, and ultimately why they didn't matriculate past census day. We would love to tell you that the reasons that these folks left was outside the locus of control of the institution. So it could be, I moved out of state, my family moved out of state, I went straight to a 4-year institution. We did not see much evidence of these kinds of reasons. We had to take full ownership of what they were telling us, and that is the processes were too tough. They weren't streamlined. We did a poor job of onboarding these students, and we didn't build that trusted relationship over time where they knew Dallas College wasn't a fallback option, but was ultimately a really good option for them to have a great learning experience and prepare for either transfer or a high wage, high demand job. So I'm going to turn this over to Dr. Saida Jamilai, and she's going to take us through other aspects of our follow-up to the study.
Thank you, Dr. Mahan. So I hope you can all see. One sec. All right. So as Dr. Mahan mentioned, the research with the RAND team with Dr. Karam and Dr. Goldman allowed us to identify how many students registered and dropped before the census date of during I think it was fall 2023, and also kind of identify the probable factors that led them to withdraw. And those came from insights with student interviews and also from the staff and leadership working groups. Now, we wanted to follow up on this research with some action, testing out initiatives that could possibly mitigate early student loss or recover some of the dropouts. So one action we took was we partnered with a student outreach firm specializing in dropout recovery and re-enrollment to re-engage students who dropped before the census day in fall 2024 and spring 2025. So Graduation Alliance conducted a 4-month campaign each semester where they reached out to students through calls, emails, text messages to inquire why they left and if they were interested in re-enrolling. But the campaign also had a dual purpose. In addition to kind of reorienting and reinviting students, we also asked Graduation Alliance to conduct a survey for us that identified really kind of the main factor barrier that led to that student to withdraw, and then further details regarding specific issues around that barrier. So in order to do this work, we drafted the script as well as the survey for Grad Alliance to use and the calls. And the survey was embedded in the script, was kind of so that students could complete it during the call. And it was also sent out via email and text for those students who wanted to take it later. So there was also a call to action component in the outreach. At the end of each call, students who expressed a desire to return to Dallas College were connected to the college's virtual student services center hotline. So this is kind of a one-stop shop for kind of connecting students to any office that would best be able to support their needs or their questions. And so based on the guidance that students needed, the center connected them to the appropriate office. So whether that was admissions or financial aid or registrar's office or a particular program of study. So in fall 2024, we were able to engage with 845 students. Of those, 224 participated in the survey. Now, after the campaign ended, we tracked those students to determine how many re-enrolled in the following spring and summer terms. And among the fall 2024 law students, 271 re-enrolled. In spring 2025, we made contact with 554 students. 92 of them participated in the survey, and so far, 73 have re-enrolled for summer and fall terms this year. So delving briefly into the contents of the survey. So shown on this slide are responses to the first question on the survey, why students left. So as you can see, cost, work schedule, financial insecurity, family obligations are the primary reasons students indicated. But in the survey, we used the key barriers that were identified in the research as a starting point to inquire further about those barriers. We asked students specific questions about their financial aid. So for instance, if their aid decision was still pending when they began the semester, if they selected a program of study, if they needed help filling out the financial aid application, if they reached out to a financial aid advisor, if their questions were answered, those types of things. We also asked questions about academic advising. If they knew who advised them when they registered for classes, like were they able to identify the success coach and their role, what was discussed with their success coach, what classes they registered for, was it online, in person? We asked about basic needs in relation to transportation, childcare, food, housing, mental health, physical wellness. And we also asked questions about college resource awareness. Were students aware that Dallas College offered a free public transportation pass? Were they aware that they could use childcare services and there were drop-off locations across campuses? Were they aware that the college offered emergency funds and counseling services? So we digged a little bit deeper into those overarching barriers that were identified in the RAND research. And at the conclusion of the campaigns, Graduation Alliance provided us with the raw survey data as well as activity reports that included notes from all the individual calls with students. And we analyzed that data and shared the findings with college leadership through a Tableau report, kind of visualizing the survey data, as well as a written report on the free responses and the activity notes. Another action we've taken at the college is the development of a predictive model. So this model uses student level data to estimate an applicant's probability of enrollment after the census date for the term in which they applied. Mr. Dylan Liu, who is a co-author on this study and is also the data science analyst at the Research Institute, is the architect behind this model. A bit of background on how the logistic regression model was developed. We initially tried a random forest model. This is kind of for the data nerds that are on the call today. But we tried a random forest model because of the large scale of the data set. I think we had about 180,000 to over 200,000 applications in the data set. So this model is really great at predicting, having predictive capacity for large data sets. But the model isn't very interpretable, and it cannot show which variables are most important in predicting enrollment. So we went with the logistic regression model. It was a more preferred approach to help college administrators and leadership understand the factors influencing student enrollment. Over 40 variables were included in the model relating to student characteristics, milestones or steps required to be registration ready, and of course the outcome variables, so including enrollment past census date, re-enrollment in the next term, etc. The most important variables that predict likelihood of enrollment are after census day are whether students complete their TSI milestone. So the TSI is the assessment in Texas to determine college readiness. Now, completing your milestone and your TSI milestone doesn't necessarily mean that the student must pass, the math, reading, and writing assessments. Many can be exempt from this, but it just means that the TSI component in the registration process needs to be addressed for that student. Also meeting the meningitis vaccination requirement and completing financial aid applications were important variables. The model also shows that students who apply closer to the start of the term are more likely to stay enrolled past census day. And having prior college experience, including dual credit, is also an important indicator. I think currently the model predicts the probability of a student to enroll or not enroll with almost 90% accuracy, currently speaking. And these scores help administrators and staff provide more targeted support to prospective students. Mr. Liu does a lot of work throughout the year in kind of ensuring that the data is refreshed and the probability scores are calculated and uploaded into Salesforce. And this has really been kind of an iterative process where we've, improved the model as the semesters have progressed and have been able to really polish those probability scores for our admissions team and our other support teams to use. So now I'll turn things back to Dr. Mahan to describe our more comprehensive initiatives that support enrollment and retention.
Thank you, Dr. Jamilai. And we've worked so hard on that model, and I want to thank Dylan Liu as well. One of the funny kind of takeaways there is we're definitely not encouraging students to apply late and try to process our application and financial aid in the last 2 weeks. That happens on its own all too often. But the takeaway there is that we know some of the students that applied very early, maybe Dallas College was that default option in case some of their other options didn't pan out, but the ones that apply closer to the start term are more likely to enroll because that's their decision to come to Dallas College. So this is the last slide, and I want to give us some time to read through the chat and answer any questions. Go ahead with the next figure, Saida. So in 2020, the year 2020, the college implemented the learner care model, which, but with the leadership of Dr. Beatrice Joseph and Dr. Karen Stills, this was really a game-changing structural change. We were going through a consolidation of our 7 independent colleges into one institution. And so this restructuring of our personnel led to the ultimate goal of having just a single point of contact. And so we have a single point of contact for the admission and recruiting process. On the left, you see where it says pre-collegiate experience. That's the college coach. And that college coach is charged with building out the relationship and the beginning of a relationship, I should say, with the student and partnering with the high school. And we know with enrollment growing so much in dual credit that the focus to begin recruiting and building on the beginning of a relationship, and we can establish that value proposition that Dallas College is not a fallback option, but we have quality instruction and instructors that care, that are very much focused only on teaching, and that you matter to us. And so that message has to start early. And so then the second piece to the process is the right-hand side where it says collegiate experience. And so that point of contact is our student success coach. And that's our liaison to all of our services to support enrolled students. But that person also is charged with registering that new student. And so it's a critical relationship. And so we really, across these 2 points of contact, we want to limit and simplify that process for our students. On the right-hand side, you see Smart Start, the first year experience. This is our quality enhancement plan from our SAC-COC reaffirmation of accreditation last year. It was a 10-year on-site visit. So we'd like to think that some of the work done in this research was evidence that we needed to develop a first year experience QEP. And so we highlight the three tenets there on the left in red that represent new student orientation, informed career exploration, and quality connections, because those are onboarding early interventions that we know are part of this study, that once a student registers, that these pieces kick in and we try to smooth that onboarding process into the first year. And of course, the first year experience, you've seen the research is critical to ultimate completion and first job and all the rest. So we're super excited about that. And if you do the go ahead to the next slide, Saida. So if you do the number, if you're counting at home and at work, of the follow-up items that we implemented from this study, it's actually 4. So again, we're super proud of the follow-up and the amount of action we created from this research. And those 4, again, are the on-site visits with the working groups, the statistical modeling that was done to help our college coaches focus on the students that are most likely to matriculate. We also did an outreach program with a partner, Graduation Alliance, to not only survey these students and understand them better after the initial round of qualitative research interviews, but we asked them to come back, and we retained about 350 additional students that we wouldn't have had without this study. And then the fourth is, this quality enhancement plan that's focused on the first year experience. We certainly, can't take credit for that decision, but we hope this was evidence that the onboarding process is so critical, but yet sometimes very difficult for students that may not have the guidance. They're first generation students or students from lower income backgrounds. And so we want to give them the extra support, the extra focus to be that student-centric institution that we strive to be. So I will stop there and turn it back over to Dr. Jamilai, and we can entertain any questions that you put in the chat.
Thank you, Dr. Mahan. Just a quick conclusion. Thanks for your time and listening in. If you'd like to learn more about these initiatives or share some of the work that you're doing at your own institutions to mitigate student loss, we'd love to connect with you. And feel free to also visit our website, our Research Institute website, to explore reports and tools in our other research areas. And I'll turn things over to Dr. Karam and Dr. Goldman.
Thank you, David, and thank you, Saida. And we'd like to open it for any questions. We still have some time. So if you have any questions, please.
We have a couple of questions in the chat already.
Oh, okay.
So let me read one to you and see if you want to take it, or maybe also share it with Dr. Mahan, Dr. Jamila. So the question is, how do we simplify financial aid communications, yet ensure that we are still providing the large amount of detailed information that's needed for financial aid? And we're bound by the federal financial aid regulations, which limit some of the options presented.
Dr. Mahan or Dr. Jamila, do you want to take that?
We're happy to take that. I was thinking you might want to give just an overview of some of the findings along those lines, and then we can talk about what we're doing at college.
The study really found that the students did not have the basic information, and this is what really we focused on, that the welcome emails did not tell students, because the financial aid is not a requirement. Obtaining financial aid is not a requirement to enroll. As a result, the welcome emails in many of the institutions we talked to did not necessarily include basic information regarding the financial aid. And I think what students needed to learn early on, just by talking from students who dropped before the census date because of financial aid reasons, is they did not know, they did not have information about the timelines, as well as the paperwork that they need to submit. And the fact that the colleges also needs time, because sometimes they need to verify the information on for some of those students. And so we understand that the information is complicated, but it seems the onboarding did not provide at least the basic information for students to understand that this is going to take time and that they need to start as early as possible because of all of these reasons that might delay the decision. And that's really what we were finding. Anything to add?
No, I think that about covers it. I think the challenge there in our strategic enrollment management folks partner with our marketing division to make a concerted effort towards this communication and to simplify, with the ultimate goal that, we have to have either a one-on-one or some sort of group session to continue to process these financial aid applications, because like you said, it is a complicated matter. Yet we have people that working on that can help smooth that and simplify things. And I think it's fair to say that we're getting better in that space, that we're reducing the queue in the financial aid offices on our 7 campuses, and that we're doing more electronically. But it's, of course, a work in progress given the number of students that we serve. And of course, as you mentioned, so many of our students register very late within the last 2 weeks. And then you're talking about thousands of students to help with processing financial aid.
We have another question that I think would be interesting to get some perspectives on. The question is, do you have recommendations to assist or outreach to students who are a few credits short of graduating but have not enrolled in the past few semesters?
Yeah, so we can take that as well, and say that feel free to jump in here. It's fair to say that there's been some real technical progress here where we can do analysis through our registrar area, that we're able to see, where those students are missing just a few courses or maybe even one course, and do a strategic communication with them. And so that's an ongoing effort. I think in the last 1 to 2 years, it's gotten much better in terms of learning how to not only identify these students, but do outreach to them. But that outreach, again, is tricky given that, sometimes we've lost engagement with these students. And so we're going back to, either a Dallas College email or a cell phone number that we have on record. So it takes an ongoing effort, and it's resource intensive. But to that point, very critical, and ultimately giving students the credentials that they've already earned, and helping them leverage that for better jobs and better career opportunities.
We've had a couple of questions about requests for further information. So if you'd like to delve a little bit more into what the Dallas College colleagues have done, please email Dr. Mahan and Dr. Jamila. Dr. Mahan put his email in the chat, dmahan@dallascollege.edu, and they'll be happy to engage with you. If you've got questions regarding what we did on the RAND team, of course, email us as well. We've got one more question.
One more question, yeah.
Do that. With thousands of applications, how do you support, that is, staff and coordinate a learner care model that has a single point of contact for all pre-collegiate experience?
Well, I'll get started, and Dr. Jamila can jump in here. I think the short answer is it's a super challenging situation, because those ratios are still quite high in terms of how we can build a student-centered culture. We like to believe that some of that statistical modeling helped us inform those career coaches on who to identify and reach out to first. But we know that that's an ongoing challenge, and we're going to continue to get the model better. But the short answer is we have increased our staff the numbers are really important here, that we were able to build more student success coaches into the budget that ultimately reduces that ratio and gets more one-on-one time. And then I think the other piece to it is to enhance the academic advising to a point where we know that students need to that program of study, and sometimes they're undecided, but to help guide them through at least a path that we know will be a marketable skill, a marketable credential. So instead of being undecided, we might have the Associates of Science degree as a general study platform, and then that gets them going down a road that should ultimately either lead to transfer or more specialization within their preparation for work. So it's an ongoing struggle, and it's a really important question. And I think our enrollment management folks would answer it in a variety of ways, but we know that it's taking great resource, and we're having to add a lot of head count there to get those ratios smaller.
Yeah, it certainly is a challenge, but we encourage you to take a look at the report. As we draw to a close, I'm gonna put the report link and Rita's and my email address back up on the screen for a minute. Encourage you to interact with the report and interact with us. And let me hand back to Rita to close out.
And also a reminder that today's webinar will be made public and posted, so you can also see that on the RAND website as well. I want to thank everyone who attended. I want to thank all the colleges that participated in our study, working with you all, as well as with Dallas College has been a great experience. And again, if you have any questions, feel free regarding the study, feel free to email us and connect with us. Again, thank you all, and have a wonderful rest of the day.